Marla Jennings was 30 years old and worked as a graphic designer in the mid-sized city of Evergrove. Her life had moved along steadily. Quiet workdays, peaceful evenings, and weekend brunches with friends. But tonight felt different. As she stood in the softly lit restaurant, surrounded by the scent of fresh flowers and the mellow hum of background music, Marla couldn't stop smiling. Everything felt perfect. Elegant camel-colored centerpieces adorned each table, and laughter floated in the air like confetti. Tonight was special. It was her engagement party. After 4 years of love, laughter, and growing together, she and her fiancé, Levi, were finally taking the next step. In just 4 months they'd be married. Levi stood beside her, tall and warm, his hand gently resting on the small of her back. Marla first met him when he joined the creative team at the marketing firm where she worked. They'd clicked almost immediately during a company retreat. What started as casual conversations over coffee turned into late-night calls and shared dreams. Now they were here, surrounded by the people they loved, celebrating the beginning of their forever. Friends and family filled the room. Colleagues, old college mates, Levi's parents, and even a few cousins Marla hadn't seen in years. And of course her own family. Well, most of them sat at the front table. Her parents, Fiona and Daniel Jennings, looked poised, but their smiles were stiff, strained. Her younger sister, Kaya, scrolled lazily through her phone, barely hiding her boredom. The two sisters had never been close, and their distance had only widened with time. Still, Marla told herself tonight wasn't about awkward dynamics. It was about love, commitment, and new beginnings. Or so she believed. Fiona stood up and lightly tapped her wine glass with a spoon. The gentle chime cut through the ambient noise of the room, and conversations began to fade. All eyes turned toward her. She smiled, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and raised her glass. "May I have everyone's attention, please?" she said, her voice sweet but slightly tight. Marla leaned into Levi, who gave her a reassuring squeeze under the table. "First," Fiona began, "I'd like to congratulate my beautiful daughter, Marla, and her wonderful fiancé, Levi. I hope your marriage is full of joy, love, and endless happiness." A warm round of applause followed, and glasses clinked softly. Marla smiled gratefully, though the uneasiness in her chest hadn't quite settled. Then Fiona continued, her tone cooling like a breeze before a storm. "I also have an important announcement," she said, setting her glass down. "After careful discussion with Daniel, we've decided to redirect Marla's $45,000 wedding fund to Kaya instead." The room fell into an eerie silence. Marla blinked, certain she had misunderstood. A faint laugh escaped her lips as she glanced around, expecting someone to chuckle along. "That's funny, Mom," she said lightly, trying to hold her smile. "But that money is mine. I'm not giving it away." Fiona's face lost all warmth. Her lips tightened, her posture straightened. "This isn't a joke, Marla," she said sharply. "Your sister is getting married a few months after you. She and Darren are struggling. She needs the money more than you do." A flush of heat rushed up Marla's neck. Her stomach twisted into a knot. "What are you talking about? That's my money. You and Dad gave it to me. It's in my account." Fiona's voice dropped, calm but cold. "You and Levi have good jobs. Kaya doesn't. She deserves a beautiful wedding too." Marla's hands began to tremble as she stood, her chair scraping softly against the polished floor. She tried to steady her voice, but it cracked with disbelief. "We've already planned everything, Mom. Every detail. We've been saving, budgeting, even planning to use part of the fund for a down payment on our first home. You can't just take that away." Across the table, Kaya shoved her chair back suddenly, nearly knocking over her drink. "Don't be so selfish, Marla," she snapped, eyes flashing with irritation. "You could have offered to share it a long time ago. You know I need it more than you do." Marla turned to face her, jaw tight. "This isn't about need, Kaya. It's about being responsible. Planned ahead. You spent your fund, not me." Fiona's voice rose sharply. "She lives simply. She doesn't have much. And Darren's doing his best. Marla folded her arms. And I've always worked harder. Followed the rules. Saved. Sacrificed. You don't get to punish me because she blew through her money. Fiona's face turned crimson. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Guests stared at their plates or watched the drama unfold in stunned silence. Levi placed a calming hand on Marla's arm, whispering her name softly. But Marla didn't back down. Then, without warning, Fiona stepped forward and slapped Marla hard across the face. The sound cracked through the restaurant like a gunshot. Gasps echoed around the room. Marla's head jerked to the side. Her cheeks stung. Her eyes filled, not just with tears of pain but of shock. No one moved. Even Kaya looked frozen. Slowly, Marla turned her head back toward her mother, voice low and shaking. You don't get to hit me just because I said no. A sharp breath could be heard from a nearby table, and then a soft voice broke the silence. Yes, hello, I need to report an assault. It just happened here at Willow and Hearth Bistro. Marla's gaze drifted toward the bar, where a waiter was speaking into his phone, eyes wide with concern. Within minutes, the distant sound of sirens began weaving through the night air. Guests remained seated, hushed, many casting awkward glances toward Marla while others looked down at their plates, unsure of what to say or do. Marla stood there, motionless, her hand pressed to her burning cheek. Her mind was still trying to catch up to the reality of what had just occurred. Levi stayed close, his jaw set tight. His other hand clenched into a fist at his side. Daniel, her father, quietly pulled Fiona aside, speaking in a low tone, trying to calm her down. But it was too late. The damage was done. Moments later, 2 uniformed officers walked into the restaurant. One approached Marla gently and asked if she was the person who had been assaulted. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. A waiter quickly came forward, confirming the incident, explaining that Fiona had struck Marla in front of everyone. Fiona tried to brush it off, insisting it was just a family misunderstanding, that emotions had gotten high. But the officer stayed calm, informing her that physical assault in public, even within a family, was still a crime. Do you want to press charges? The officer asked Marla quietly. Her heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it, but her voice was steady. Yes, she said. I do. And with that, Fiona Jennings was placed under arrest, right there in the middle of her daughter's engagement party. The room remained frozen as Fiona was led out in handcuffs, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Her expression a mixture of disbelief and indignation. Daniel followed behind her without a word, his face pale. Kaya, meanwhile, stared at Marla as if she were the one who had done something wrong. Marla didn't flinch. She stood tall, even as her legs trembled beneath her. Levi gripped her hand, steady and silent, offering the kind of strength only someone who truly cared could provide. Guests began whispering, unsure whether to stay or leave. Some looked torn between concern and curiosity, while others quickly gathered their things and exited with murmured goodbyes. Marla stayed in place, numb, her thoughts spinning. Later that night, she spoke with her lawyer and officially filed a report against her mother. Fiona was released on bail the following day, but the legal process had already been set in motion. A few weeks later they were back in court, this time not over money but over the slap. Fiona stood before the judge, who reviewed witness testimonies and security footage from the restaurant. The evidence left little room for debate. She was found guilty of misdemeanor assault and sentenced to a $2,000 fine, mandatory anger management counseling, and 6 months of probation. The judge even considered jail time but suspended the sentence on the condition that Fiona complied with the terms. Marla sat in the courtroom, watching her mother avoid her gaze. Not a single word of apology offered. When asked if she had anything to say, Marla stood up, looked directly at Fiona and said, I didn't expect this from my mother. But no one is above the law. Her voice didn't shake. For the first time, she felt like she had taken her power back. Marla hoped that once the court ruling passed, the dust would settle. But instead the tension thickened. The slap and arrest had only deepened the divide in her family. Fiona made no effort to reach out. Kaya blocked her on every platform. And Daniel, silent as ever, chose to disappear into the background. For a brief moment, Marla thought that would be the end of it. She could finally focus on her wedding, her future. But just 3 weeks after the engagement party, she came home to find a thick legal envelope waiting in her mailbox. Her stomach dropped. The sender, Weston and Drexler, attorneys at law. Inside, a formal letter declared that Fiona and Daniel were suing her for control of the $45,000 fund. Their claim: that the money had been originally intended for college expenses, and that Marla had misused it. She stared at the letter, unable to believe what she was reading. The money had been legally hers for over a decade, placed in a custodial account when she was 17, and turned over to her when she turned 19. Her parents had always told both sisters they could use the funds however they saw fit. The difference: Marla had saved and planned for her future. Kaya had not. Kaya's choices had always been reckless. She'd opted for a private arts college with a steep tuition, dropped out after 2.5 years, and burned through the rest of her fund launching a boutique that collapsed in less than a year. Her savings vanished into branding consultants, a lavish photo shoot, and a launch party featuring rented influencers. When the business failed, all she had left was a luxury car she couldn't afford and a stack of excuses. Now, her parents wanted Marla to pay for Kaya's failures. Furious and hurt, Marla hired a sharp, composed attorney named Talia Grayson. After reviewing the documents, Talia reassured her. "They don't have a case," she said confidently. "The account was a gift, and there are no legal restrictions on its use. Any verbal agreements won't hold up in court." Marla felt a wave of relief, but also anger. "So why are they doing this?" she asked. Talia gave a knowing look. "Because some people would rather drag you down than admit they made a mistake, especially when they're trying to protect someone else." And just like that, Marla saw it clearly. This wasn't about money. It was about loyalty, favoritism, and control. Her parents weren't just trying to take her future. They were trying to erase Kaya's failures by making Marla pay the price. The next few months were draining. The legal case devoured Marla's energy, time, and focus. Every day brought new paperwork, court notices, and meetings with her lawyer. She still had a wedding to plan, but that dream was now tangled in stress and legal fees. Every time she walked into the courtroom and saw her parents seated beside Kaya, none of them making eye contact with her, it struck her like a fresh betrayal. Kaya wore smug expressions, clearly confident she would somehow walk away with the money Marla had spent years protecting. During one particularly tense hearing, Kaya took the stand and claimed the fund was always meant strictly for education. Talia rose calmly and asked, "Did you use all of your fund for college expenses?" Kaya faltered. "Well, not all of it. You dropped out and used the rest for a failed business and a luxury car, didn't you?" Kaya bristled. "That's not relevant." But it was. Very relevant. "So if the funds were strictly for school, why was there no issue with you using it for other things?" Talia pressed. Kaya had no answer. The courtroom was silent. Each session peeled back more layers of a family dynamic Marla had tried for years to ignore. Her parents had always excused Kaya's behavior, always looked the other way. Now they were trying to rewrite history and weaponize the legal system to protect their favored daughter. Outside the courtroom, Levi remained Marla's unwavering support. He came to every hearing, held her hand during each blow, and reminded her again and again, "You're doing the right thing." But that didn't mean it was easy. The emotional toll was brutal. Planning a wedding was supposed to be joyful. Instead, it had become a backdrop to a courtroom battle. Marla lost sleep, cried quietly between work meetings, and questioned if the fight was worth it. But deep down she knew it was. This wasn't just about the $45,000. It was about being seen, respected, and finally holding the people who hurt her accountable. Just when Marla thought things couldn't get worse, they did. One quiet afternoon, while she was reviewing vendor estimates for the wedding, her phone buzzed. It was her cousin Brielle. "Marla, I'm so sorry about the wedding being called off," Brielle said gently. Marla froze. "What? The wedding's still on." Brielle hesitated. "Your mom called me last week. She said you and Levi broke up because he cheated on you." Marla's heart dropped. Within an hour, 3 more people called to ask about the alleged breakup. Some even mentioned receiving cancellation emails. Marla rushed to check her sent messages. Nothing. That's when it hit her. Someone had made a fake email account impersonating her. She didn't need proof to know who was behind it. The pattern was obvious. First the slap, then the lawsuit, and now sabotage. Desperate to protect her peace, Marla called her Aunt Loretta, Fiona's sister, and one of the few relatives who hadn't picked a side. "Your mother's telling people Levi cheated," Loretta said, her voice tired. "She's also telling them the wedding was a lie. She's trying to make Kaya look better by making you look unstable." Marla leaned against the wall, breath shallow. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was war. That evening, Levi came home to find Marla pale and shaking. "What's wrong?" he asked. She showed him screenshots of the fake emails and told him what Brielle had said. His expression darkened. "Your sister contacted me too," he admitted. "She sent me fake photos, said she had proof you were cheating on me." Marla stared, horrified. Levi pulled out his phone and showed her the images. Blurry, badly photoshopped pictures of her face pasted onto someone else's body, standing beside a strange man. It would have been laughable if it hadn't been so disturbing. "I knew it was fake," Levi said. "But my parents saw them too. Your family is trying to destroy everything we're building." That was the moment they knew. They had to protect themselves. They hired a private security firm to guard the wedding venue. They gave the team printed photos of Fiona, Daniel, and Kaya, with clear instructions. None of them were allowed in under any circumstance. The morning of the wedding arrived with a swirl of nerves and excitement. The ceremony was set to take place at a serene outdoor garden just outside Evergrove. It wasn't extravagant, but it was exactly what they had dreamed of. Elegant, intimate, and filled with intention. Rows of white chairs lined the lawn, facing a wooden arch wrapped in fresh wildflowers. Marla stood in the bridal suite, her dress pressed and veil arranged, trying to calm her heart. The past few months had stolen so much from her, but she refused to let this day be tainted. 2:15 There was a knock at the door. One of the security guards stepped in, his voice low. "Miss Jennings, we've just detained a woman attempting to enter through the back service gate. Matches the photo you gave us. Your sister." Marla's stomach twisted. "Was she alone?" "Yes," the guard replied, "but she was carrying a large tote. Inside we found a can of red paint." Marla's breath caught. Red paint. Her dress. The ceremony. The guest. Kaya had come to ruin everything. The weight of it all nearly crushed her. "Do you want to press charges?" the guard asked. "We can call the sheriff right now." Marla stared at the floor. After the slap, the lawsuit, the lies, and now this, she had every right to. But this was her wedding day. And she'd already lost too much to their chaos. "No," she said, voice flat. "Just make sure she's removed from the property and doesn't come back. Also check if my parents are anywhere nearby." The guard nodded and left. Marla sank into a chair, her arms shaking. Her best friend, Jade, knelt beside her. "What happened?" she whispered. Marla told her everything, her voice barely steady. Jade's eyes flared with anger. "You know what this means, right?" she said. "It means you won. They couldn't stop your happiness, so they tried to destroy it. But you didn't let them. You stood your ground. Now go marry the man who stood by you through all of this. You deserve it." Marla nodded slowly. She wiped her eyes, took a deep breath and stood up. Her Uncle Henry, Daniel's brother, walked her down the aisle. As Marla stepped into the sunlit garden, all eyes turned toward her, but she only saw one face. Levi's. He stood beneath the floral arch, eyes locked on hers, the rest of the world fading away. The betrayal, the courtrooms, the lies. They melted into the background. What remained was love. Real, enduring love. The ceremony was everything she had dreamed of. Heartfelt, personal, and overflowing with emotion. They exchanged vows full of truth and commitment, speaking not only of love, but of resilience, partnership, and growth. When the officiant finally said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the guests erupted into applause. For the first time in months, Marla felt light, free. The reception was beautiful. Laughter, music, and heartfelt speeches. Jade's toast brought Marla to tears, the kind that only come after surviving a storm. The food was simple, the dancing was joyous, and the love in the room was undeniable. Most guests knew something had happened with her family, but no one pried. They respected the quiet dignity Marla carried. As the evening wound down, Marla and Levi made their exit beneath a canopy of stars, friends showering them with rice as they ran hand in hand toward the waiting car. Marla paused just before climbing in and turned to look back. The glow of the venue shimmered behind them. Her family had tried to destroy that moment, but they failed. All of them had failed. The honeymoon that followed was 3 weeks of peace. A quiet beach town far from Evergrove, where courtrooms and confrontations didn't exist. They walked along the sand, swam in warm water, and talked about the future. For the first time in what felt like forever, Marla could breathe. Really breathe. When they returned home, she felt renewed, ready to start fresh. She and Levi poured their energy into their new apartment, decorating together, building something that felt like home. It was a small place, but it was theirs. No help from anyone. No strings. Just hard-earned joy.